Hey everyone, it's David Premier here from Cerebral Selling, and once again you join me for a new segment I'm doing called Sales Rep 101. And this is actually where we bring you some great stories, insights from real reps in the sales trenches, sharing their story about how they survive, how they execute, how they grow at these amazing high growth companies and execute their craft. Now, in the last couple of episodes, I featured some account executives, but today I thought we'd change things up a little bit and share a story from, as many of you know, one of the hardest working roles, jobs in the sales organization, our friends in business development. And so today I am joined by Reza Zohouri, who is an enterprise business development rep at one of the world's best and fastest growing sales organizations, helping to modernize the way merchants grow their businesses. And of course, I'm talking once again about Shopify. So welcome, Reza. Great to have you.
Hey, David, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited.
Oh, no, look, it's my pleasure. Now, you know, on the show, we try to feature not just the reps, but kind of the stories behind the reps, like how you got here, how you execute, like what are the things that you're thinking about. And of course, everyone has an interesting journey to sales because no one gets into sales on purpose. We all get here by accident. But certainly, one of the things I'm excited to hear from you is number one, your journey. But number two, you have a bit of a different perspective on the world of selling around something that's very important and poignant, especially now in kind of this, I don't want to say post-pandemic. I don't think we're done world yet. But that's mental health, and just kind of not just mental health in the moment in terms of our jobs and how we execute, but also just emotional perspectives on getting into sales and life and that whole thing. I'll let you talk about it, but tell me a little bit about kind of how you started your sales journey.
Sure. And yeah, good call out. Like it's funny hearing more and more how common it is for people to just fall into sales. So I come from a construction background. My dad actually owned a renovation company. I helped since I was a little kid, and I always helped the family business while also exploring other journeys, other avenues. And so I got myself into telemarketing. That was my first official job. I went from telemarketing to retail sales, working at Gap, Guess, Club Monaco, Home Depot.
So you're a
Some
fashionable
of
guy,
these
is what you're saying, right?
are,
Anyone needs
yeah,
any
I like to think so by
advice?
now.
What to wear to,
We'll
dress
get to the
gently?
fashion point actually, because there is another job I did. I was a fashion model.
Just,
So
just a minor flex there, everyone. Yeah, I did some casual fashion modeling. No, you're very, anyways, that's it's awesome. Go on. I don't want
I
to
was I
interrupt you.
was very much trying to explore all kinds of avenues, and so yeah, I did these jobs. I was a forklift driver. I was a personal trainer. I got into, like I said, I got into fashion commercial modeling, and did runway shows, did commercial magazines. I was the face of Virgin Mobile for Canada, and so I had these really cool experiences while going to school. I went to University of Toronto my first year. Both of my older sisters went there, so it was kind of expected to do that, and didn't love it. I didn't see the vision of where it would lead me, and so I left. I went to Ryerson, another university here in Canada, for business management. Very practical. I enjoyed it. I thought I was actually going to stick it out, but that's when my dad exposed me to more of the managerial side of construction, and I fell into the influence. I thought I really liked it, and I was like, okay. And so I went to George Brown College, has a 4-year degree in construction management. So I third school went into that, and just like at that point, I had so much to prove that I just like crushed it, and ended up getting a job with a really large general contractor, Ellis Don,
Mhm.
here in Canada, and got to work on sports complexes. I did a few condominium projects. I worked on our Pearson Airport, Terminal 3, and I actually face one of my projects right now. And so yeah, so I was a project coordinator, doing managing trades, managing consultants, working with clients, and it was nice, it was fun, it was challenging, but frankly, I didn't love it, and I knew I didn't love it. And mind you, I'm doing this while I'm like secretly doing the modeling stuff on the side.
I was gonna say, like you're
Yeah,
secretly like Derek Zoolander, And if there's a 12-month Reza calendar out there, like you let me know. I'm gonna support it.
Yeah,
But then
I
how
will
did
bury it deep down.
people are now Googling like, okay, Reza calendar.
Oh
But
boy, I didn't
but
think of
but
that.
but then how did you make this transition to sales? Now, of course, I get it. Construction management. There's a certain element of selling there, which a lot of people, I say, no matter what it is that you do, even if your title is not in sales, like we're all selling something. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, so the quick story is that my dad ended up being my big influence in construction. He ends up getting really sick. He ends up passing away
Oh,
in
sorry
like
to
a
hear that.
really short amount of time. And that was the catalyst, because from this seemingly, and of course, devastating situation, spawned this insight and this release to do what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so I read this book called Happier, and it just really helped me feel motivated to go after what I wanted. I knew I wanted to help people, and I knew I loved communication and the art and science of communication and helping this medium, but I didn't know what that looked like. And so I went from general contracting, I pivoted into a next role doing cost consulting, thinking, okay, consulting will open up some doors. We'll see where this takes off. From there, I was blessed to get into teaching at George Brown College, where I got my degree. And I specifically was helping postgraduate students on soft skills, interview skills to get jobs in construction management. I loved this role. It absolutely resonated with me. I thought I was in the perfect place. Um, Frankly, it didn't pay enough. And living in Toronto, it's you got to really make sure you're financially responsible. Um, so that's when I decided, okay, what can I do similar to this, where I'm helping people solve problems and I'm using communication to do that. And that's when I thought of tech sales. And to me, I was like, oh my God, tech sales is so much. It was like this whole shiny world compared to a construction world, right?
Hmm.
And uh, and so last year, first day of COVID, is when I started as a BDR with a SaaS sales company that you're familiar with, eCompliance, also known as Alchemist. And then that's how I got into tech sales.
So it's really interesting. And first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your father, but I'll tell you,
Thanks.
for so many people, I don't want to say tragedy, but adversity can be a huge catalyst. I talk about it in my book. I was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago, and thank
I
goodness
remember.
I'm okay now, right? But that shaped a lot of my outlook on life and my desire to live my passion, do what I love. Life is short, and so I say fortunately or unfortunately, my experience, it's never good to go through these things, but I say my experience was the greatest blessing of my life in many ways. And so it's these adverse conditions that tend to shape us. And so, we always, losing loved ones is never good. This idea though, that it can be a catalyst to really kind of, put life into perspective and do what you love is, that's the silver lining. So I'm curious now. So you've made this now transition to selling, but let's just kind of stay with this theme a little bit of kind of like the mental aspect, right? Because there's tactical aspect. We talk a lot about sales tactics and so on, but like tell me about like the emotional journey and maybe like the emotional journey like to the role, kind of your perceptions of what selling was and your perspective now of mental health and the perspective you bring to your role, to your company, to your kind of practice of this profession. Tell me about that.
Yeah, awesome question, David. Thanks. So imagine I'm in my 20s. I'm doing the fashion modeling thing, which, by the way, as you could imagine, like that in itself gave me such a huge ego and exposed me to so much status craving, status seeking, and people pleasing to like get to the gigs you want to get. And I just got so immersed in that kind of way of living and viewing the world as, in order to get around and to navigate these things, you gotta please everybody and you gotta aim for the highest status. And so with my dad passing and being the catalyst, that also introduced me to mindfulness and Buddhism. My sister and brother-in-law, they introduced me to their teacher. The way that they were processing my father's death and that whole situation, it intrigued me. And it was, getting introduced to this teacher and doing the practices that I, over 6 years now, have been able to see, how status craving, people pleasing, has really negatively impacted my life. It's impacted my career choices. And so coming into sales, being someone who was very intense, always wanted intense experiences, partying late night, living life to the fullest, spending all my money, and all the things I've mentioned. I thought, I wonder if I can bring a different perspective into the sales community, because I'm sure I'm not alone in these habitual patterns. I'm sure I'm not alone in having these past experiences, and I've learned to overcome them. And so now when I come into the BDR role in the sales world, I bring this perspective of trying to bring spaciousness versus intensifying an experience. And I find that even when I'm having my interactions with merchants, that's how I'm approaching it as well. It's, I'm not laughing at something that's not funny. I'm being very genuine. And because, maybe I would want to laugh at something just to kind of bring that energy into the room and be like, yeah, we're on the same page. But that's not authentically me. And so I find that being authentically me and actually hearing what the people have to say and connecting with their actual needs and bringing that genuine curiosity has actually brought me way more success, and it saved me a lot of energy, because I'm not now exuding all this energy trying to assume what that person wants me to say or do.
Like authenticity is everything, and I always give this example of when my kids. So people know I have three daughters. Two are teenagers. One is a little bit younger. When they come to me and they're about to hit me up for something that they think
Yeah.
I'm going to say no to, right? They want to lift to the mall. They want to download an app. Like, I can tell immediately, right? Just by their tone. And the same thing happens, and it's very off-putting, right? The same thing happens in your sales interactions. Like, people can tell if you're being authentic or you're just kind of, delivering a speech, something that's, rehearsed or pre-recorded, or even when you ask a question, your pace, your tone, the way you might look up at the sky, or or on the other side, like the way it sounds like you're just robotically reading this off a page. People can tell, right? And especially now, people's tolerance for lack of authenticity is as an all-time low, right? Like, we've just been beaten down over the last little while, right? So
Right.
I love this idea of like bringing your authentic self. And also, and I for whatever reason, I don't know if I've given this analogy before. You ever see the movie Talladega Nights with Ricky Bobby? And
Yeah.
there's a scene where he's like driving with a cougar in the car, and his father's teaching him how to like just get used to driving fast again. And what does the father say? Is like, if he's all freaked out about driving with a cougar in the car, and he says, hey, look, if you are calm, that magnificent beast, will be calm too. And I always think about that when we're talking to our customers. If we start imposing like our month end, year end, quarter end pressures on them, like we're trying to get to close them, they can feel that. Like, they can feel it, they can sense it. And I'll tell you, some of the best BDRs I've met, and I know this is probably a little bit more in the minority, there are some companies that hire BDRs that are in the later halves of their sales careers. They said, hey, look, I've been in AE, I've closed, I've done all that stuff. I want to be in sales, but I don't want to have that crazy quota pressure anymore. So they become like mature BDRs. And having interacted with so many, they're so successful because they just don't give a shit anymore. They're just there for the customer. They're not there to prove anything to anyone. And it's kind of like that calmness, like you're with the cougar in the car, that calmness translates to the selling interaction. So I love that I'm hearing that like you've discovered this sense of calm at such an early point in your career, because it's going to help you a ton.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I got to say, in like your book, like what you practice, like coming from a mindfulness perspective, all I see is mindfulness in what you have been teaching and like practicing. Like, that's what resonated and sort of brought me into, well, it's what attracted me to your book. It's what attracted me to your courses. It's, you understand, you make it clear that like at the end of the day, it's our emotions that drive us. And the sooner that we can get and identify our own emotions and what's going on in us, I think the sooner we can help and understand emotions in other people, and sort of get to the root of those fears to address those actual needs.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, like, sometimes, especially when we do sales training, like I've done with Shopify, you tend to focus on the tactics. It's like, okay, here's tactic one, here's tactic two. And we talk about how to make those tactics very humanizing. But in a way, I sometimes just take a step back. Just go into your sales interaction and don't worry about the tactics. Just do whatever do what feels human, do what comes naturally. And then let's take a look at what you did, and we'll reverse engineer the tactics. Like, we'll assign the tactics to your human narrative. But sometimes if you learn tactics and you try to force them into a human narrative, it can come off as being inauthentic. So I say for all of you out there who are trying to do new things in your sales motion, just try to be human first, and then take a look at what you've done and try to identify what was so impactful. Like in Reza's calls, maybe if we listen to Reza's calls, we hear that he was very calm, or he asked this particular question, but in the moment he was just being human, right? And so this idea that if we look at what the tactics are, see how he's executing them, and observe those patterns, because it's the pattern recognition that's really critical. People talk about emotional intelligence all the time and how important emotional intelligence is, being able to identify feelings in yourself and others and respond appropriately. It's all pattern recognition, because sometimes in the moment we don't pay attention. It's being able to look at it after the fact and say, yes, here's something I did that was really good. I was calm. It made the customer feel calm. I didn't laugh where it was, would potentially come off as seeming inauthentic, and you see what impact that had. It's being able to observe those patterns is what lets us do them more intentionally in the future and repeat them in a super positive way. So I love, Reza, this is awesome. We could talk about this forever. If
Yep.
let's say you're talking to all the the enterprise BDRs and SDRs out there that are earlier in their career, and maybe have had some of the journey of you, but maybe not as much of the perspective. What's one piece of advice you would give to them just to help them become settled and more effective in their role?
That's a good question. One piece of advice, it comes down to awareness, self-awareness. So, I mean, there's a book that really changed my life. It's called Nonviolent Communication. It's by Marshall Rosenberg, and it really made it clear on identifying observations instead of diagnosing a situation, observing what's actually happening, identifying your feelings, identifying needs, and making requests, and knowing the difference between a request and a demand. And I found that these things have helped me understand not just the needs in myself, but the needs of others, and how to navigate those and communicate. I think, I think self-awareness will help. If I didn't have enough self-awareness, I wouldn't be attracted to your coaching. I wouldn't be attracted to, like, certain things I would miss. And so I think having that self-awareness and practicing that, I think would be the most beneficial.
I don't know what to say after that. That's 100% it, right? Just having that self-awareness, and because when you have that sense of awareness, and when I talk to you here, it feels like you've already won, right? Like it feels like you've
Oh,
already
thanks.
won, and you're not going out there to prove anything to anyone. And even though in sales, I get it, we have quota pressures, month end, quarter end, all that kind of stuff. If you kind of can just have control over your mindset and not impart some of the chaos that might be swirling in your head on your customers, and just bring that calmness and desire to help and serve, then you're going to be fantastic. So I loved it. I'm looking forward to keeping in touch, Reza, and hearing more about your story and journey. I'm sure for everyone listening to this, it's been super impactful. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, it's been a huge pleasure and honor of mine again. David, thank you so much for the work and efforts that you put in. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Reza. Wish you all the best.
Thanks.